Well, hello everyone, how are you? I am so excited to be here to have this conversation with the mayor, particularly in a city like Miami, where there's so much work that is underway to impact this issue of climate resilience. And when I think about an announcement that Verizon made yesterday, we announced our second Verizon Climate Resilience Prize, designed to give about $500,000 to 4 entities that are really focused on using technology that is scalable to address issues of climate in very vulnerable communities, communities that are underinvested in. And so I think, given the conversation that you just heard, it's a great leaping off point, Mayor, for the very first question that I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
How do you, as the mayor of this city, think about the opportunities for climate resilience for really under-resourced communities? What's the work that you're doing, and what's the opportunity that you think we need to continue to do?
Well, I think obviously under-resourced communities struggle inordinately to deal with the impacts of climate change. I mean, that's obvious. And so we did something that I don't think any city in America has done, which is we created a climate anti-gentrification fund. We did that through our Miami Forever bond. It's $4 million, and it's for single-family residential neighborhoods in vulnerable areas, both vulnerable to climate and also under-resourced, and who would not otherwise be able to make their homes more resilient and therefore would have to sell. And so what we do is we grant them the money to do things like put impact windows or change their roof or do things that make the home more resilient. And it's a forgivable loan. They just have to keep the home for a certain period of time. We don't want them to be improving their house and then turning around and flipping it, right, and making money off of it. The idea is so that people don't have to sell, so that people don't have to move out of vulnerable areas and can just make their homes more resilient. And it's something we're very proud of. I think it's first of its kind in the country.
I love what you're doing, and I love this view of doing it through the lens of anti-gentrification. Do you think that 4 million is enough? Do you have insight that says there's more to be done and how to drive that?
You know, it's okay.
Oh.
The answer is I don't know yet.
Okay.
Probably not.
Yep.
But you know, we innovated. We did something that had never been done before. We funded it, and then the idea was we've got to see how it goes in terms of the utilization. You'd be surprised. This is something that's going to maybe shock the audience, which is maybe why they were clapping. But we've set up even things as crazy as like rental stabilization funds that have been untapped, right, sometimes. And I think there's a variety of reasons why that happens. Sometimes it's we're not doing a good enough job getting it out there. Sometimes our standards are not sufficient to meet the need. So that happens, but you know, again, you may or may not be shocked to know sometimes government is not that efficient at spending money. But you know, I think this particular program has been utilized, and it may need to be expanded and grown based on the need.
I love the fact that you recognize the need, that you're doing something about it, and you recognize that you have to do the learning.
And it's innovative.
And it's innovative. So let's talk about the space of innovation with some of the work that you have done sort of inside of Miami. Can you share more broadly some of your work?
Well, we don't have the luxury, and I talked about this in my concluding remarks yesterday, of pretending like climate doesn't impact us. Right? You can't stick your head in the sand and pretend that things are not happening. When we see Irma have 4 to 6 foot storm surge, when we see Ian 10 to 15 foot, and Dorian 20 to 25 foot for 2 days on the Bahamas, we know that Mother Nature has a variety of different levels of destruction within her capability. So we have to be conscientious of that. We have passed a bond, which is something that and by the way, voter approved. It's not something that normally happens in Miami. We don't like to tax ourselves. So you know, we approved a bond to tax ourselves to the tune of $400 million to do a variety of things. Part of the money, by the way, for the Climate and Gentrification Fund comes out of that funding source. And so that's one thing. And certainly on the adaptation front, on the mitigation side, we joined C40, which is you know, a conglomeration of over 1,000 cities in the world that have pledged carbon neutrality. And I think there's 2 things that we lean into. One of them is we understand that and they're byproducts of each other, right? We have this saying in Miami, not only do we want Miami to be here forever, right? And that's part of our brand, but we like to say that the environment is the economy. You know, they're not, you know, unfortunately in politics, there are oftentimes juxtapositions, right? Like, oh, either you're pro-COVID policies or you're pro-environment. You know, you got to be one or the other. And we just think a lot of these times, a lot of things are false choices or false narratives. I think, you know, we're 8th in the nation in green jobs. So we have a robust economy when it comes to climate. And that's something that we're happy about. They're good, high-paying jobs that also produce benefits for a world that we all want to see, hopefully we all want to see, preserved, and we all feel that we should be custodians of that world, right? It's like being a custodian of your home. And I have children. I have a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I want my children to be able to enjoy our environment in the way that I've been able to enjoy it. We have a jewel in the Everglades. We have our Biscayne Bay. So we've done a variety of things to enhance and protect our bay, to make sure that we have drinkable water. One of the things we want to do, a challenge to move forward on, is the fact that we have still a significant amount of homes that are not on our sewer system, that they're on the septic system. And we want to work with Miami-Dade County and the federal government to try to transition from that. So there's still a lot of work to be done, and I'm not sitting here telling you that we've done it all. But there's a lot of good news too. And one of them is that FEMA has determined that the city is less risky in terms of flooding. So I think, and the reason why I say that is to basically say, look, that our investments are targeted and they're being recognized as reducing risk. And I think that's an objective indication of what we're doing is working.
Okay. So thank you for that very sort of ecosystem view of all that you're doing. I'm going to ask you a follow-up question to that, and then I'm going to segue a little bit into partnerships. So if you think through sort of all that you said, particularly this view that the environment is the economy, how are you thinking about the under-resourced communities that you're lifting into opportunity to participate in that economy, to have jobs, to contribute more broadly, to get the skills and the training that's needed so that they can help find and create solutions that they can bring back to their own communities?
You know, we are resourcing science, technology, and math education. We're doing it at every level, from kindergartners all the way through 11 through 18-year-olds by investing in high-performing nonprofits. And then we created a scholarship fund, which we call the Venture Miami Scholarship Fund, so that every single Miamian that's a Pell Grant recipient, basically the most needy in our community, if they are getting a STEM degree, which hopefully will translate into potentially some environmental engineering degree, as well as computer engineering, et cetera, they go to school for free. So we did that by putting a modest investment from the city side, but leveraging it with an 11-to-1 investment from the private sector side. So we're investing about $500,000. The private sector is investing $5.5 million. And we've created the scholarship fund so that kids in STEM education fields who are Pell Grant recipients can go to college and get a university degree for free.
Excellent. So,
we're also doing it for First and Family, which I think is also, not necessarily related to climate per se, but it's something I'm really proud of, so that if you're a Pell Grant recipient in the city of Miami and you're first in your family to go to college, we pick up the balance.
I personally think that's so important. I do not live in Miami. I actually live in Texas, but I graduated from college.
Perfect.
Though we are close.
You're close.
But I graduated from college because I took advantage of Pell Grants.
There you go.
And so I have a huge sense of what that means and how we can move people into economic prosperity by really helping them to fund, their education. So you talked about the role that partners are playing in the work that you're doing. I think a lot about that at Verizon with, our technology, our 5G, what we can do inside of education. Talk more about your expectations of how companies like Verizon and our technology helps to participate in the climate economy.
Well, we know that the world is changing rapidly, that the rate of disruption is increasing and exponential. And we know that the world is also metamorphosizing from a highly industrial economy to an increasingly digital economy. And so we think that companies like Verizon and 5G and democratizing 5G, and even the infrastructure bill, which one of the components of it is broadband for all. It's important to give everyone in our community an opportunity to be successful. If they have that opportunity and they want to go into a field like climate technology, which, by the way, for young people is their number one issue. It may not have been the number one issue for my generation or even the one that came after me, but the one that comes after that, that's 18 years old, I don't know what they're called, if they're called the TikTok generation. I don't know if they've gotten a name yet, but that generation it's their number one issue. And I can tell you, I hear about it. So it's definitely in the forefront of their mind. So I can see how a lot of these partnerships, this digital access, can increase the ability for them to have an opportunity to get a STEM degree in a climate field and be part of the answer. I think in life, we strive for meaning. And I think that's what we want to live our life for, is to give back, to participate, to provide. And I think this is an opportunity to do that. And I'm happy that Verizon is a partner in that initiative.
Yeah, thank you for that. So one final question. If you think about your legacy, not just as a mayor, but in this space of climate resilience, tell me 3 things that would be important to you to cement that legacy.
I think the 3 things are adaptability, mitigation, and then the third one is one that doesn't get talked about, which is reversal. Right? I love to see a world where we adapt to what Mother Nature does. I'd love to see a world where we mitigate, and more than mitigate, but we eliminate the emission of carbon into the environment, right? And then I'd like to see a world where we can reverse the damage that we've done. And we never talk about that. I mean, I don't know why we don't talk about it, because I guess we're so focused on mitigating to a place where there isn't some catastrophic outcome that we just don't even get to the next step, which is how do we reverse? I have a really deep sense of belief in the human spirit and the spirit of ingenuity. You know, people will often tell me, is Miami going to be underwater? And I said, well, there's a lot of cities in the world that are under the sea level, right? So they found ways to survive for hundreds of years under sea level. So if the worst case scenario presents itself that we're actually below sea level, I still feel optimistic that we can solve for that problem. But we shouldn't necessarily have to get there to solve for these macro problems. We should feel a sense of urgency. We should feel a sense of pride in our world. And frankly, we should find the economic means to do it. I think, like I said, I think there are economic incentives in play, and not just government incentives, but private sector economic incentives in play. I know that there's a debate about this, but I've been to many Middle Eastern countries who are oil producing countries whose main focus right now is finding next generation energy sources, right, and being the purveyor of those energy sources. So, some people doubt their sincerity in that, but I could tell you it's consistent. I mean, they're consistently talking about it, they're consistently investing in it, which leads me to believe that even they understand that the world is going to transition and that they want to be a part of that transition. If they're purveyors of energy, they want to be purveyors of the next iteration of technology and energy. And that's actually smart. That's good business. I mean, if you see something being disrupted in your industry, adapt. I mean, we saw our main power company here, which was producing mostly nuclear power, become the largest purveyor of solar in the country. So they did that most likely because they saw the competitive pressures and they realized that it was smart, sort of you can't beat them, join them kind of mentality. And not only did they join them, they became the largest purveyor of solar in the country. So that happens, and we have to lean into that and applaud that when it does, when economics drives innovation in a way that's good for our environment and for our country.
Yeah, thank you. So reversal is important. And I think that I would just close our conversation by saying the ability to make sure that everyone has a seat at the table, to ensure that they understand how to make changes inside of their community is so important, particularly for under-resourced and vulnerable communities. So I thank you for what you're doing. I thank you for the partnership that we have and the fact that Verizon is as committed to climate issues as you are in the city of Miami. So thank you all.